What if the real danger to your soul doesn't come in this life, but after you die? We've all heard the stories, a tunnel of light, peace, angels reunions. But what if that's just part of the picture? What if the afterlife isn't a reward, but a revelation? One most people aren't prepared for. Carl Jung, one of the greatest minds in psychology, had a vision near the end of his life. And it wasn't about politics, power, or fame. It was something far deeper and far more terrifying. He spoke of a trap that waits for the soul, a psychological trap. One that most people don't even know exists. Not because it's hidden, but because we don't want to look. And here's the chilling part, almost no one listened to what Jung tried to say. His final warning was swept aside, buried beneath academic debates and forgotten quotes. But what if his message still matters now? More than ever, because if Jung was right, if the afterlife really is shaped by the contents of your unconscious mind, then your greatest battle doesn't end when your heart stops. It might just begin. So in this video, we're going to explore exactly what Carl Jung saw, why he believed most souls get stuck, and how his final insights might just change the way you live your life, starting right now. Stay with me. What you're about to discover may not be comforting, but it could be the most honest conversation you've ever had about your soul. In 1944, something extraordinary happened to Carl Jung, something that forever changed the way he saw life, death, and the soul. He had just suffered a massive heart attack. His physical body was unconscious, motionless in a hospital bed. But Jung's mind had gone somewhere else entirely. He later described what he experienced not as a dream and not as a hallucination, but as a state of absolute clarity. A vision so vivid, so symbolic, so transformative, that it didn't just reshape his understanding of the afterlife. It became his final warning to humanity. Jung found himself floating high above the earth. He could see the curvature of the planet, the continents, the shimmering blue oceans. It was as if his soul had been released from all physical limitation, finally free, finally weightless. And then he saw it, a temple suspended in the vastness of space. Not built of stone or brick, but of light geometry and symbolic meaning. It pulsed with a sacred energy, as if it weren't a place at all, but a living presence. This temple wasn't out there in space. It felt as though it had always existed, inside him. To Jung, this temple represented something sacred, the self, the wholeness of the psyche, the union of all that we are and all that we've yet to become. It was not just the goal of human life. It was the soul's final destination, and he was being drawn toward it. Jung described this moment as pure peace, no fear, no confusion, just a profound sense of meaning. He knew without being told that this temple held everything: truth, memory, eternity, himself. He was approaching it like a pilgrim finally reaching the holy center. But just before he could cross its threshold, something stopped him. It was as if an invisible force grabbed his soul and pulled it back gently but firmly. Jung understood immediately it wasn't his time. His life on earth wasn't over yet. He still had something left to do. And just like that, he woke up in the hospital bed. Weak, confused, changed. You see, Jung didn't treat this experience like a fantasy. He wasn't interested in how real it was in a scientific sense. To him, what mattered was what it meant. And that's where things get truly fascinating. Because Jung didn't just have a beautiful vision. He came back with a message, one that very few people talk about, one that wasn't warm and comforting, but sobering, almost frightening. After he recovered, Jung wrote about what he saw. And in his notes, journals, and letters, he made it clear there are things that happen after death that no one prepares us for. Let that sink in. Most of us grow up hearing about heaven, hell, or reincarnation, but almost no one talks about the psychological dimensions of what happens after we die. The inner architecture of the soul, the symbols that await us in the unseen world. Jung believed this temple wasn't just his temple, it was a universal symbol, a representation of the self, the divine totality each soul is meant to integrate with. But here's the catch, most people never reach it. Not because they're bad, not because they didn't try, but because they're unaware of the inner forces that rule them. They die still trapped in the illusions of the ego, still clinging to personas they wore in life, still haunted by shadows they never faced. And when the soul encounters the afterlife, Jung warned, it doesn't enter some neutral paradise. It enters a realm shaped by its own unconscious contents, which means all the fears you've avoided, all the parts of yourself you've denied, all the unresolved inner conflicts you've ignored. They don't disappear after death. They become your reality. Jung saw the temple. He felt its pull. But even he wasn't ready to step through it. Even he, after a lifetime of self-exploration, had more work to do. That's why he came back. Not just to live a few more years, but to deliver a warning. A warning that's still being ignored today. This isn't just a mystical story. It's a mirror. Jung's vision challenges the way we live our lives right now. Because if the afterlife is not a place, but a state of awareness, then your entire spiritual future depends on one thing: whether or not you've done the inner work. So let me ask you, have you faced your shadow? Do you know who you are beneath the roles you play? Have you started integrating the deeper parts of your soul because that temple, it won't appear to the ego. It appears to the self when you're finally ready. And if Jung himself was almost unprepared, what does that mean for the rest of us? Stay with us. In the next section, we'll explore why Jung believed most souls never make it to the temple and how to avoid the spiritual traps he warned us about. But for now, pause, reflect, because that temple might already be calling to you. Carl Jung didn't describe the afterlife as a paradise. He didn't talk about golden gates or angelic songs or eternal rest. No. For Jung, the afterlife was far more intimate and far more complex. He believed it wasn't a destination. It was a mirror. And what it reflected was the one thing most of us spend our lives avoiding: our unconscious. After his near-death vision of the temple, the symbol of the self, Jung returned with a haunting realization. He wrote, "Most souls don't reach the self after death. They get trapped in symbols they don't recognize." Let's pause on that. Trapped in symbols, not by demons, not by external punishments, but by the very psychological structures we've carried all our lives. Jung wasn't talking about religious sin or divine judgment. He was pointing to a much deeper truth, one rooted in the architecture of the human psyche. And here's where it gets truly revealing and a little terrifying. In life, we're surrounded by symbols, not just letters or icons, but psychological symbols. The shadow, the persona, the anima and animus. These aren't metaphors, they're living forces inside us. And most of us don't know how to deal with them. The shadow is all that we repress, the parts of ourselves we're ashamed of, afraid of, or simply unwilling to face. Our anger, our envy, our pain, our unresolved wounds. The persona is the mask we wear to survive in the world. The roles we play, the image we project, what we show others, and what we hide. And the anima and animus, they're the feminine and masculine energies within each of us, often ignored, often misunderstood, but always shaping how we love, how we relate, how we seek meaning. Now imagine this: you die. Your body fades, your identity dissolves, and suddenly you're in a realm where the unconscious is no longer hidden. It's everything. Jung believed that in death, these symbols don't disappear. They intensify. They become environments. They become real, not metaphorically, but experientially. If you never faced your shadow in life, it might become the landscape you're forced to wander. If you were fused to your persona, unable to separate who you are from how you were perceived, you might become trapped in that illusion, forever replaying the same empty roles with no audience left to applaud. If your inner masculine or feminine was rejected, you might find yourself lost in a realm of longing projection or imbalance, searching for something you don't know you've been missing all along. Jung said it clearly: the afterlife is not a reward system. It's a confrontation with your unconscious. Think about that. He's not describing hell. He's describing integration, or the lack of it. Now you might ask, but why does this matter if we're already dead? Isn't the hard part over? That's the illusion. According to Jung, death doesn't fix anything. It just exposes what's always been there. You don't suddenly become enlightened when your body dies. You carry you with you, every fragmented part, every unresolved wound, every unintegrated shadow. And if you've spent your whole life avoiding those parts, they'll be the first things that greet you on the other side. So here's the real question Jung was asking. Are you building your own prison without realizing it? He believed the self, the temple he saw, is always calling. It's the goal of life and death. But to reach it, the soul must be whole, integrated, aware. And most souls, they arrive in the afterlife just as fragmented as they were in life. Still caught in ego, still afraid of the shadow, still running from themselves. It's like trying to walk through a door that only opens when you're finally honest with your deepest self. A door that leads to true freedom, but only if you've done the work. You might be wondering, how do I avoid that trap? How do I prepare for what Jung described? It starts now while you're alive. Start noticing the symbols in your dreams. Start questioning the masks you wear. Start listening to the voice you've been silencing for years. Every honest moment of self-reflection. Every shadow you confront. Every time you embrace a forgotten part of yourself, you're not just healing. You're preparing. You're building the soul that will continue when your body doesn't. Jung didn't share these insights to scare us. He shared them to awaken us. He wasn't saying you will be punished. He was saying you will be shown. Shown who you are, what you ran from, what you refused to love inside yourself. And that's the trap, not judgment, but recognition. You'll see everything you didn't want to see. And the only way out is through. So ask yourself tonight, what symbols are shaping your inner world? What part of you is still in hiding? And if you were to die tomorrow, would you be ready to meet what's waiting? In the next part of this video, we'll explore why most people stay trapped and how you can begin the journey toward integration. Today, don't look away. This might be the most important journey you'll ever take. Why is it that Carl Jung's warning, one of the most powerful messages about the soul after death, has been largely ignored? Why do we scroll past it, dismiss it, or reduce it to something poetic, abstract, instead of seeing it as a direct call to wake up? It's not because people don't care about death. It's because most of us are afraid of what death truly represents. Let's be honest. In modern society, we've developed a strange relationship with death. We sanitize it. We spiritualize it. We outsource it to hospitals, churches, or New Age affirmations. But we rarely truly face it. We like neat categories: heaven, hell, reincarnation. Good people go here, bad people go there. But Jung shattered that binary. To him, death wasn't a system of reward or punishment. It wasn't an ending. It was a psychological dimension, a space where you're forced to confront the parts of yourself you refuse to deal with while alive. That includes your fears, your contradictions, your unloved parts, your shadow. Now here's the real trap. Modern life is designed to help us avoid that confrontation. Think about it. From the moment we wake up, we're flooded with noise notifications, news, productivity hacks, curated feeds telling us who to be and how to look. But what we're not taught is how to sit in silence with ourselves. How to ask, "Who am I?" underneath the performance. Carl Jung called this the great forgetting. He said modern man has lost the courage to look inward because what we might find there isn't always pretty. And yet, it's the only way to become whole. So why don't people listen to Jung's warning? Because it's not glamorous, it's not easy, and it demands radical self-honesty. Most of us would rather believe that death will magically fix what life couldn't, that we'll be better when we're gone, that our suffering will disappear and we'll float into light and peace. But Jung's vision was different. He saw the afterlife as a mirror, not a fantasy. If you lived a life running from your truth, you might spend the afterlife still running. If you were ruled by your ego in life, obsessed with image control approval, you might find that same ego still clinging to you, even when there's no body left to inhabit. The real trap after death, Jung believed, is ego attachment. And that's the part no one wants to hear. We think the ego dies with the body. But according to Jung, it doesn't. It lingers, especially if you've spent your entire life identifying with it. If you've built your identity around being admired, achieving more, always looking strong, then in death, you may find yourself lost without those roles. The soul becomes disoriented, stuck in old patterns, grasping at old symbols, not realizing that the game is over and the real journey has just begun. Let me put it like this. The ego is a useful tool while we're alive, but it becomes a prison when we die. And the scariest part, you don't even know you're in that prison because you've been decorating it your entire life. You've made it look like success, like beauty, like safety. But deep down, there's a voice that whispers, "This isn't who I really am." And that voice is your soul. Carl Jung once said, "People will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own soul." And he was right. We'll chase every distraction. We'll numb our anxiety with endless scrolling, working, achieving, pleasing. But the moment you die, all of that falls away. What remains is what's true. That's why Jung's warning is so urgent. He wasn't saying be good so you can go to heaven. He was saying face yourself now so your soul isn't lost later. If you're still watching this, maybe you've already sensed what Jung sensed. Maybe you've felt that strange pull, the realization that there's more going on inside you than meets the eye. Maybe you've had dreams you couldn't explain, emotions that came out of nowhere, moments where the mask slipped and for just a second, you saw something real underneath. That's your invitation. That's the door Jung was pointing toward. But you have to walk through it while you're alive. Because in the afterlife, there's no more pretending. There's just you and everything you haven't reconciled. So what can you do? Start now. Sit with your shadow. Question the roles you play. Reclaim the parts of you that got exiled along the way. This is what Jung called individuation, the journey of becoming whole. It's not easy, it's not fast, but it's the most important thing you'll ever do. Because the afterlife isn't a reward for being good. It's a reflection of your inner world. And the more you clean that mirror now, the less frightening it will be when you finally see yourself through it. So, what do we do with all of this? Carl Jung didn't share his vision of the afterlife to frighten us. He didn't warn us about shadow traps and ego illusions just to sound mystical. He gave us this message because he believed we could do something about it now while we're still alive. He believed that every moment of life is a chance to prepare the soul, not for judgment, not for paradise, but for something far more honest integration. Jung's invitation to us was simple, but not easy. He said, start looking into your shadow while you're still breathing. Face what you've repressed. Acknowledge what you've denied. And begin the journey toward wholeness, not when you're dying, but now. Because the work we avoid in life doesn't vanish in death. It follows us. Jung believed the key to preparing the soul lies in 3 deep practices. You've heard this throughout the video, but let's go deeper. Your shadow isn't evil. It's just unseen. It's your jealousy you pretend isn't there. Your sadness you cover up with humor. Your rage that turns inward because you were never allowed to express it. When you begin to face the shadow, not just intellectually, but emotionally, you stop running. You reclaim lost parts of yourself. And you begin to prepare the soul for what's coming. Ask yourself, what triggers me? What part of myself do I keep in hiding? Who would I be if I stopped performing? Jung called it the self with a capital S. It's not your job, not your personality, not your Instagram bio. It's the part of you that existed before all the noise. Before trauma. Before labels. Before comparison. The self is the soul's compass. It's whole. It's wise. But most people are so tangled in their ego, they forget it even exists. So how do you find it? Through silence. Through introspection. Through that feeling you get when you're alone in nature, or listening to music that opens something ancient in you. That's not random. That's contact. The self doesn't shout. It whispers. But it's always waiting for you to listen. Here's something most people miss. Your soul is already communicating with you. Every single night. Through dreams. Through flashes of insight. Through gut feelings you can't explain. Jung taught that the unconscious speaks in symbols, and those symbols are the bridge between your current self and your deeper truth. Start paying attention. Dreamed of a crumbling church that could mean you're spiritually disconnected. You're craving meaning but don't know where to find it. Dreamed of a shattered mirror. Maybe you're in conflict between your ego and your shadow. You don't know who you really are anymore. These aren't just random images. They are maps. If you ignore them, you're ignoring the language of your soul. Carl Jung believed that preparing for death wasn't about fear. It was about courage. The courage to look inward, to stop distracting yourself, to face the pain instead of numbing it, to remember who you are beneath the noise. Because death doesn't come to erase you. It comes to reveal you. And let me say this, you don't need to be perfect. You don't need to be fully healed. You just need to begin. Begin sitting with your emotions instead of escaping them. Begin noticing the repeating patterns in your life. Begin asking deeper questions. Why am I here? What still hurts inside me that I pretend doesn't? What is the part of me that always whispers? There's more. Jung saw the temple. He felt its call. But even he wasn't ready to walk through it, because he still had more integrating to do. So what does that tell us if the most introspective psychologist of the 20th century needed more time? Then we must take the inner world seriously. Not later, not someday. Now. Who looks outside dreams? Who looks inside awakens? Carl Jung? You are not here to chase status. You are here to wake up. The journey of individuation. And the path back to yourself is the greatest preparation you can make for what's coming. Because the real temple isn't floating out in space. It's already inside you. And every time you listen to your dreams, sit with your shadow. Choose truth over comfort. You take one step closer to that temple. So ask yourself, are you building a soul that can walk through it if you were to die today? Would you be ready? I don't mean physically. I don't mean your will, your finances, or the goodbye texts you'd send. I mean your soul. Have you truly met it? Have you taken the time to face your fears, your shadows, your deeper truth? Or would you find yourself just like so many Jung warned about, lost in a world of symbols you don't recognize, trapped in echoes of the self you never fully understood? Carl Jung didn't share his warning to scare us. He shared it because he knew we were asleep, distracted, avoiding, dreaming outward when the only way to awaken is to look inward. He said something profound, something that is echoed through every part of this video. You don't find the self after death. You meet it now in every dream, every fear, every shadow you dare to face. That's not just a quote. That's a roadmap. A call to start the journey, not later, not in crisis, but today. So let me ask you again. Are you waiting for life to push you into awakening? Or are you willing to step toward it voluntarily, bravely, consciously, because the temple Jung saw? It's not something that appears after we die. It's something that reveals itself as we slowly peel back the layers of who we thought we were. And remember who we truly are. If this video stirred something in you, some memory, some emotion, some quiet inner nudge, don't ignore it. Drop a comment below. Have you ever had a dream so vivid, so symbolic, that it made you question who you are on a soul level? We read every single one. And if you're on a journey to understand yourself, your soul, and what truly awaits beyond this life, subscribe. This channel is a space for seekers, for deep thinkers, for people who sense that life has more to offer than just survival.